We were over there, and they had the charts up. And they had the charts that said if you're Jamaican, you come from this tribe, and if you're from Barbados, it's that tribe, and boom, 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 boom. And read the book, said, hey, come on, Pop. What is, you know that ain't right. He said, of course, Danny, I know that's not right. He said, but that's the hook. That's how we get them into place, and we wire them up to what's true. Well, years later, after he passed away, and his sons and all of them, they either died or moved away, the Tanakh school began to teach those things as truth. This is the truth.
Hello everyone, I would like to welcome you back to my channel. Today we'll be discussing the 12 tribes chart associated with certain Hebrew Israelite groups. These charts claim to identify the true descendants of the biblical tribes of Israel as modern-day Black, Latino, and Native American population. These charts assign modern ethnic groups and nations to the ancient Israelite tribes. For example, they identify American blacks as the tribe of Judah, West Indians as Benjamin, and they identify Mexicans as Issachar. These charts emerged from a movement that began in Harlem back in 1969, known as the One West Hebrew Israelite tradition. One of its members, Uriah, introduced the 12 tribes chart. The central thesis of the Hebrew Israelite is this: people thought to be descendants of enslaved African persons in the Western Hemisphere are true ethnic Israelites. In the Bible, the 12 tribes originated from Jacob's son, which are Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. Eventually, most northern tribes were scattered by Assyrian conquest that occurred in 722 BCE, while the southern tribes were exiled to Babylon around the year 586 BCE. These tribal assignments appear to be modern construction from the late 1960s. The charts emerged from certain Black Hebrew Israelite groups who believe that African Americans and other people of color are descendants of ancient Israelites, while the modern day Jews are not. This interpretation draws on Deuteronomy 28 and 68, which they believe prophesies the transatlantic slave trade, though many biblical scholars disagree with this reading of the text. Some of my findings, when we take a little bit of time to examine the 12 tribes chart, we quickly find out that it doesn't stand up well to scrutiny. While these charts hold a profound religious significance for their believers, they aren't really supported by archaeological, historical, or even genetic evidence. Rather, they represent a powerful religious cultural identity that emerged in the 20th century as a response, likely due to the experiences from discrimination and or displacement. Ultimately, this is a byproduct of slavery. When you have nothing to identify with, sometimes you make it up. When I think about this, I think, which white slave trader had the forethought to decide carefully to ensure that only members from the tribe of Judah went to America, and only members from the tribe of Issachar went to Mexico? I would suppose that would have been a logistical nightmare to guarantee that each tribe only went to a geographical location in the world. More importantly, outside of logic, it doesn't line up well with scripture. According to the 12 tribes chart, the American blacks are the tribe of Judah. However, in Isaiah 11, verses 11 through 12, it says that Judah will be dispersed to the four corners of the earth, not just to the Americas, as the 12 tribe chart illustrates. Also, the absence of Dan on the chart proves that the 12 tribes chart is false. Because when I read in Ezekiel 48, which is the final chapter of the book of Ezekiel, it serves as a culmination of the prophet's vision of the restoration of Israel. It provides a detailed description of how the land will be distributed among the 12 tribes of Israel. It emphasizes God's faithfulness to his covenant, but also to ensure that the people he said will dwell in the land that he said that they would. The prophet Ezekiel revealed that all 12 tribes will have a portion in the kingdom to come. In this chapter, all the 12 tribes, they're represented, and not one tribe is left out. Check out Ezekiel chapter 48, verses 31 and 32. Because when I look at verse 32, it says, one gate for Benjamin and one gate for Dan. Dan has a gate because he is present. So why is he left off? There's no reason to exclude Dan from the 12 tribes chart if he's present. Also, the tribe of Dan is listed in Genesis 49, 17 through 18, and Ezekiel 48, 31 through 32, but excluded on the 12 tribes chart. I don't understand this. Also, some other geographical inconsistencies in the chart is that the chart assigns West Indian blacks to the tribe of Benjamin, which creates several contradictions. So according to the geographic definitions, the West Indies encompass Cuba, Jamaica, Hispaniola, which includes Haiti and the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and also up to 7,000 other islands in the Caribbean. Yet the chart separately assigns the Levites to Haiti, Ephraim to Puerto Rico, Manasseh to the Cubans, and finally Simeon to the Dominicans. But those four nations, Haiti, Puerto Rico, Cuban, and the DR, they're part of the West Indies. If the West Indian blacks refers to Benjamin, then which specific populations does this include? Essentially, the chart doesn't specify whether this refers to Jamaicans, Trinidadians, or other black populations in the numerous islands that are not explicitly mentioned. So the West Indies encompasses those nations. So then why are they assigned separate tribes? This doesn't make sense. As a matter of fact, none of this makes sense. As you saw, this was made up and people just couldn't shake it. Again, this is my issue with organized religion. It keeps you in a box. You try to not have confusion so you don't bring up certain things. Actually, you make it fit. It reminds me of a man. He's walking through a forest. As he's walking through a forest, he sees an archer. And this archer hits on a bullseye every target. So the guy, he looks at the archer. The archer looks at him. He's like, how did you hit a bullseye on every one? He's like, easy. First, I shot the arrow, and then I drew a target around it. That's what we're doing. We're not being led where the science takes us. Anyway, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.